Welcome to Confessions of a Parent Coach. I'm Coach, a mother of four, and potty talker, Ann Kaplan. This is the podcast where I confess something from my own parenting and coaching life, teach a lesson around it, and answer your questions. Even we parenting experts are far from perfect, and the real magic happens when we get down with all that imperfection. We get into the gritty side of parenting here, so earbud up and dive in.
Welcome into another episode of the podcast, listeners. I am so excited to be here with you today. And today is one of those days where I'm going to share with you a little bit of a tip, a tool, a life hack that's going to really get you from point A to point B with your kiddo. You know that we spend a lot of time on the podcast talking about theory and concepts and what does the research say and what is all the information out there that we have say about what do our kids need? What does it mean to be a good parent? What is authoritative parenting look like? All that great stuff. But you also know that it's a big deal for me as a coach to help you bridge the gap between those concepts and research and theory and the boots on the ground execution. And today is one of those boots on the ground execution. I think you're going to really love it because today I'm going to be teaching you a very specific, concrete tool that you can use with your kiddo to help them step up into their leadership and responsibility, taking ownership for their own problems, help them kind of expand into what their potential is and not play small, all of those things, get them to start looking at situations differently and having better problem solving skills, like all this amazing stuff that we talk about. A few years ago, the buzzword in the parenting community was how do you raise your kids to have grit? I would say this is part of that grit category. This is a really, really great tool to use with any age child. Absolutely applies in any situation. Literally, you could use this with an 18-month-old and an 18-year-old. And you probably hear me do it with you, listeners. If you hear me, even on the podcast, validate some experience that we're all going through and help you kind of start looking at it differently, you're probably hearing me say all of this stuff. And I guarantee if you're a client of mine, I'm doing this to you all the live long day. Should I say doing it to you, doing it for you, doing it in your presence? All the time. And I'm going to start by giving you my little confession for today. So sometimes I like to flatter myself that I might be kind of cool or that people might at least think I'm cool, even though I'm totally, absolutely 100% not cool. I think what's closer to the truth is that I'm not fooling anybody. Nobody thinks I'm cool. But just in case you did, just in case you were under the illusion that I am cool, I'm about to shatter that illusion for you forever and ever with this confession. So I am a total nerd about improv and comedy. So I know that that's not cool, but I'm obsessed with stand-up comedy. I follow so many different stand-up comedians. I listen to a million different podcasts about stand-up and then comedy. And I also love improv. A couple of years ago, we went to there was an improv troupe that came through Denver and did Shakespearean play as improv. They'd take a few suggestions from the audience and then they would for an hour just completely improv an entire Shakespearean play. It was flippin' hilarious and also super nerdy. I totally get that what I'm telling you is dork explosion nerd alert. But that is what it is. I love improv and I love comedy. So I'm bringing that up today because I am going to actually use an improv tool to help you implement this amazing parenting life hack that I'm about to teach you. So there's a rule in improv that you never shut down what your improv partner is bringing up. So whatever suggestion they make, whatever new crazy out to lunch thing they bring, you never say no. You never say but no, we can't do that, or that's not going to work or whatever. You always encourage them and keep going with it. And how you do that is by saying yes and you can see improv exercises where no matter what your improv partner says, you start your response to them with yes and blah, 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 blah. It's really a big deal to yes and in improv. It's the number one cardinal rule of improv is that you always say yes and. And I'm going to teach you today how to use yes and in your parenting. And you may have even heard me in the past, even on the podcast before, say yes and like you'll hear me say things like, this isn't an either or situation, it's a yes and situation. It's not a no but, it's a yes and. Like, so much of parenting is like that. And I'm going to actually show you a very concrete way for you to use that theory in your parenting today. And I'm going to do that by using an example from my mom's group. So y'all know I run a mom's group, I run a dad's group too, but this particular example came from our mom's group, and I'm going to anonymize it as much as I can because our mom's group is a phenomenal group of women who are just completely kick-ass and love each other and support each other every step of the way. They really bring it in our calls, and we have privacy. So if you come to one of my calls, if you're in my group, I'm not going to just turn around and air your dirty laundry to the universe. That is pretty, talk about a cardinal rule. Cardinal rule of coaching is respecting your client's privacy. So this story will be anonymized. So there's a mom in our coaching group who has a teenage daughter, and her daughter is having, sibling conflict with her older stepson. And the two of them are just really, really butting heads. And even the mom is recognizing that a lot of the problems in this particular situation are stemming from the older kid not behaving very well and making some really unfortunate choices that are cause a lot of conflict between him and her daughter. And so she came to the group and asked about it. And actually, this is a really great example because she didn't come to a group call. She couldn't that week. She had other stuff going on. So this is a phenomenal example of how you can get like incredible coaching without even coming to a call live. All she did was post on our chat forum this challenge, and I coached her right then and there, back and forth throughout the day, just through chat, just through messages. So if you think, oh, I'd love to join Anne's group, but there's no way I can make it to all those calls, or some of the times of day don't work for me. We alternate between a daytime and an evening call every week. And, for everybody, it's like, oh, I prefer the evening calls, or, oh, I actually prefer the morning calls. So yeah, sure. That means that for half the calls, you either won't make it or they won't be your ideal time. That's no problem. Like, this is a lifetime program where you're meant to be getting your needs met throughout the course of a long period of time, not just like staccato of me like overbearingly bludgeoning you with coaching 24/7. And when you can't make it to a call, it's not a problem because you have continuous support for me between our calls. And this particular situation is such a great example of that. So I'm actually going to read selectively from her original post so you get to know where we're coming from and what we're going to do. So basically, she says something happened between my older stepson and my daughter, and they're no longer getting along. And um and then she kind of shares a lot of the stuff that's happened between them, and a bunch of them are a bunch of BS. I'll be honest, really sucks, all of that stuff. And then she said, at this point, I'm on my daughter's side as I feel she's being bullied. All I've been able to do is validate her emotions and suggest ideas of how she can protect her stuff, but I feel helpless. It's at the point where she's frustrated and screaming and crying, etc., etc. Okay. So you can probably already, even though I've sort of glossed over some of the more, egregious mistakes and stuff on behalf of this family, I bet you are on the daughter's team too, just listening to me share this post a little bit. And what do we do? What do we do when our kids are in this like no win situation? And I think sibling dynamics is such a great example of that. Like, listen, both of these people are my kid, right? I'm on both their teams, if I'm being totally honest. But, that doesn't mean that in each situation, I don't have an idea of like maybe who needs to level up here and who is being mistreated here. So at the same time, they're both my kids. I'm responsible for both of them. Like, I want to have a space in my heart for both of them, all of that stuff. I mean, it's like a no-win situation that the mom is in and that her daughter's in. And so what do we do when our kids are in a no-win situation? How do we help them without A, picking sides, B, stepping in and trying to solve it for them, which does not work. I guarantee there's like a huge group of y'all out there right now being like, step in and bitch slap that kid. Totally get it. And that's not actually effective. It's not even whether or not that's like the right thing to do. It's not an effective thing to do. It will not make this problem go away. And that's this tricky thing with sibling stuff, right? It's forever. Like y'all are in the house together. This isn't a one and done thing. This isn't a play date where if you mishandle it as a parent, whatever, everyone goes to their own houses afterwards and maybe we never even see each other again. That's not the case with sibling stuff. So I'm telling you right now, stepping in and intervening is rarely the right call with sibling stuff, unfortunately, because that would make our lives a lot easier. We just step in and DIY it, right? Can't do that here. So what do we do? So this is what I suggested back to this mama. I said, I love the validation you're giving her, and I'd add two more elements if you can. First, in addition to offering suggestions, I would help her come up with her own ideas. So we often are like, well, have you tried expressing yourself to your brother, or did you, lock your door? Did you, blah, right? We're giving these ideas of like, well, how would I handle this situation? And that's really cool. But really, especially with this age of kiddo, we want to help her level up. Okay. And so we need her to start stepping into like, okay, how do I want to solve this problem? So one of my favorite questions to ask kiddos in these situations is, how do you want to take care of yourself right now? Um, so that was my first suggestion to her is, helping her come up with her own ideas by asking questions, something like, what would help this be easier for you? How do you want to take care of yourself? How can I support you in taking care of this? That kind of stuff. And then that my second piece of advice, which isn't really super relevant for today, was for her to learn how to and experiment with setting her own boundaries with both her son and her partner and stuff like that. That's a topic for a second day. But this is where this whole yes and thing started to kind of spiral between me and this mom in a good way. Because what mom responded with was saying, yeah, the only solution my daughter can see is for her brother to stop acting like this. Which, of course, right? Of course, that's the solution that she sees. Well, first of all, she feels like she's being mistreated, which, whether or not she's right, that's her experience. And when our experience is someone is treating me poorly, obviously, the most obvious solution, the low hanging fruit here is that person should stop mistreating me. And absolutely, adults will have that as their number one obvious solution. Of course, a kid is going to. Of course, a child who still hasn't even developed the maturity and the nuance thinking that an adult has, their not only first thought, but probably only thought is this person should stop treating me this way. I should not be in this situation. The solution here is for me to not be in this situation. This is why the yes and approach, this is where the yes and approach comes in, because we need to help our kids see beyond that low hanging fruit. And you and I both know many adults who don't see beyond the low hanging fruit, and they spend their entire lives trying to fix their situations by controlling and managing and bullying and, you know, playing the victim in all of their life circumstances. And they don't ever solve their situation because you can't control anyone but yourself. You know, my husband treats me poorly. The solution is for him to not treat me poorly. Well, sorry, but you can't control your husband. You can decide what you will tolerate, how you want to take care of yourself when he treats you that way, whether you want to stay in the relationship anymore, et cetera, et cetera. You see where I'm going with this. And it doesn't even have to be anything huge like that. It could be something really minor, like, I don't know, my car's out of gas because my husband borrowed it and didn't put any gas back in it. Okay, well, the solution my brain is going to come up with is my husband shouldn't have done that. What is the first thing I'm going to do? I'm going to call him and rant at him. Does that put gas in my car? No. I'm just going to like bitch out my husband for no reason. At the end of the day, it's like, damn, I guess I need to go get some gas, right? We all know people who don't see beyond that first thought, don't see beyond that low hanging fruit. And our kids don't have to be those people. We get to help them explore and expand beyond. And that's where the yes and comes in. So mom says to me, like, the only solution that she can see is for her brother to stop treating her that way. And this is what I said. It sounds like you're already having great conversations with your daughter, which is huge because, this is especially with teenagers, if we're maintaining connection with our kids, it's like 95% of the battle. And the fact that they're having great conversations means that this arduous moment can also be a little bit of a redemptive moment, because if you play your cards right and you continue to have these great conversations, you continue to show up better and better and better. Yeah, the situation sucks, but now your relationship with your daughter, and especially at this pivotal like adolescent time, is becoming deeper and more profound and more healthy. That's a win, right? So sounds like you're having great conversations with your daughter. Um, and now my suggestion to her, and this is where this yes and comes in, is use the yes and approach to parenting. Yes, you shouldn't have to do anything about the situation. Yes, your brother should stop behaving this way. And unfortunately, it's always our own responsibility to take care of ourselves. Yes, your brother's behaving poorly, and you have to take care of yourself. Yes, it'd be great if he would change, and he might not. Do you see where I'm going with this? What is really happening when you yes and your kid is you are first, with your yes, you are validating the circumstance that they're in, the perspective that they have, the experience that they're taking away from it. You're validating that for them. It doesn't mean you agree with them. Validation does not mean agreement. So it can happen all the time where siblings, it's not 100% cut and dry who was to blame or who did the quote unquote wrong thing, but that's okay. You can still yes and your kid. Yes, it hurts when somebody, takes your stuff. Yes, it'd be great if our siblings behaved the way that they should be. Yes, yes, yes. Your behavior, your experience makes sense. Your emotions are valid. I'm validating you. Yes. And make sure you're saying and, not but, by the way. So when you say yes, but, you're invalidating everything that you just yesed. So yes, I'm validating you 1,000,000%. I see it. I get it. You make sense. I hear you. And here's the deal. And then I'm going to add like the third punch to this, which may or may not be applicable to improv. I actually think it is. Third piece is the question. So, yes, the situation sucks, and we always have to take care of ourselves, even if the situation we're in isn't our fault. How do you want to take care of yourself? Or how can I support you in figuring this out? What ideas do you have about setting boundaries? Do you see where I'm going with this? It's yes and question. Yes and question. Yes and parenting could not be more authoritative in its approach. Because remember, authoritative parenting ticks two boxes. The first box is you are emotionally attuning to your child. That yes piece is huge. The validation is emotional attunement. And if you are ticking that box, you're kind of ahead of 90% of the parents around you. Not that it's a race or anything. And authoritative parenting ticks a second box, which is having boundaries and leadership and control of the situation. When we say yes and, we are both attuning to our child and holding a boundary for our child. Because what happens when your kid comes to you with a problem, even if they don't say it out loud, what they're really coming to you with is this hope or expectation, depending on the age of the kid and the circumstance, that you're going to solve their problem for them. And if we do it, we only underscore and reinforce this idea that A, I'm helpless, and B, it's my mom's job or my dad's job. It's my parents' job to solve my problems. Not only can I not do it, it's really not my job anyway. When you yes and, you are doing that emotional attunement piece and you're handing the problem back to your child. You're holding a boundary which says, like, I have all the empathy in the world for you. And actually, this is your problem, not mine. That doesn't mean you're alone. That doesn't mean, I'm abandoning you, but it means that you're in the driver's seat about how this situation unfolds. You, child, are in the driver's seat about how you navigate this tricky, journey that you're on. So think about using this yes and parenting approach. It's huge. And I will wrap this up by telling you, after I gave all this stuff, so I said, Yes, and yes, you shouldn't have to do anything, but unfortunately, it's always our own responsibility to take care of us. So if that's true, how do you want to take care of yourself right now? Do you hear how I did the yes, the and the question? The other example I gave her is, yes, your brother should stop his behavior. And unfortunately, we can't make anyone else do anything. If that's true, what's something you can do to help yourself? You see, it's yes and question mark. So I gave her a few examples in my response to her, and her response to me was, ugh, perfect. Thank you. And I love that because, and I actually wrote back to her, I'm like, that's priceless. What did you say? I was like, oh, I love it. Ugh, perfect. And I put a little laughy emoji because this is it. Like this is super hard. Like we're handing kids problems back to them. We have to say these like really helpful, sort of inspirational things to our kids. Like it happens all the time in the group where I give a response and the, way that it's received by my client is, darn it. And yes, you're right. Like, gosh darn it. Okay, yes, I see what you're saying. Like, damn it, now I have to go and do this hard thing. I have so many clients who probably once a week are saying like, I hate when you're right. I hate when you give me this advice. That they love it. It's a love-hate thing. Like, this is hard work. This is why we have a group. This is why we're not alone. This is why we're supposed to be in this for the long haul. It is not like this quick fix. And also, if you've been following me for any amount of time at all, you know that like showing up in this way, and when the timing is right and you really nail it in one of these parenting moments, that one moment alone can be a game changer. So while this is a long journey, while we're in it to win it, and it's a marathon, not a sprint, I promise you, if you're in the group with me, if we're working together, you are going to have these little wins that are like, oh, holy shit, I see it. I get it. It's working. Oh my God. And everybody, and we all know what that feels like to just have one of those moments where it's like, I just nailed this. And not only did I do it quote unquote right, but I felt it. Like I felt the connection with my kid. I felt the lesson sinking in. I felt the like, mic drop moment really impact both of us. And that is priceless, 100% priceless. So try your yes and parenting this week. If you are ready to get my eyes on your family and my input and feedback on exactly what you're up against, it's time for us to meet. So set up your free discovery call with me. Tell me your story. I want to know. And we'll figure out together what the next right step is for you. Have a great week, everybody, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye.
The episode is over, but there's more waiting for you. You can grab my free workbook, Getting Kids to Listen the First Time, that walks you through the fundamental principles I teach all of my clients and applies them to this very universal parenting challenge. So if you're sick of repeating yourself all day long or just want to learn more about my style, you'll definitely want to go to bit.ly/kidswholisten. And if you're ready to work with me, let's meet. Set up a free call at bit.ly/Kaplan call, and let's create an action plan that gets you exactly where you want to go. And of course, links to all this goodness are in the show notes. Thanks for joining, and I'll see you next time.